Hi, welcome back to my workbench. I think all of us as model railroaders have things that we're afraid of, and scenery is supposed to be my specialty, but I'll be the first to admit, one of the things that I've kind of avoided has been this flocking episode, because I really haven't had to flock anything in the past. So my flocking experience is pretty limited. I came in, you can tell I've already put in the sidewalks. I put in one of my lights that I kind of had to have in the yard in the first place. And I've gone ahead and I've painted a lot of the base color of the ground cover that's going to receive either dirt or grass. So I've kind of pushed it to the limit. Now I have to flock. And earlier this evening I flocked 2 of the yards. I flocked this one here, and I flocked one that's down here on the far end. Now that one's the furthest away from what the viewer is going to be able to see as they walk around my aisle, which will be back here. So that's going to be the darkest, and I added a little bit darker color to it. And the colors I used were the Woodland Scenics ones. These are flocks from them. I also used flock from Knock. This one happens to be spring grass, I think it is. And the other color that I used was, see, this is 8300. I used 8305 as well. They're both almost identical in color. And they're giving me a little bit of the lightness and a little bit of the tonality changes that I'm getting in the yards. Because the one thing about Woodland Scenics is their colors are very consistent from year to year, from bottle to bottle, etc. And these are all very consistent. This one happens to be medium green, which is the one that I've used the most of. And they're very consistent in their color. And I wanted some variegation, so I added in the Knock that has 2 or 3 different colors added into it actually, and it's also lighter. But my darkest is the furthest away, a little lighter here. That's to kind of help maybe the illusion of depth. Hopefully, we'll see how that goes. What I want to do now is actually show you how I went about doing the flocking, because I have masked off the areas where my houses are going to set. I've already put down my sidewalks, and they are styrene, about 30 thousandths. They're already painted with the concrete color. And I took a pencil. I like to use a mechanical one. So I used a mechanical pencil similar to this. And I come along and I line off all of these for the concrete expansion cracks. You can also draw in cracks on this, although my caution to you, I saw Bob Lundy, who started Magnuson and later on DPM models. This is his technique. I stole it. You know, if you see a good technique, steal it. I think he makes a great looking street simply with an 05 or an 07 millimeter mechanical pencil like this. So at any rate, I made up some jigs, some movable fixtures, I should say. This one happens to be the one for edging my sidewalk, and I simply put my pin in here, run it along, and it gives me that little 6-inch curbing all the way down here. I have another one that's made up with a T square type deal, and I have it in several different widths so it matches my thing. Larry Deal here in town, architect, very successful one, always said that concrete people do what they call the golden square. And that is, if this is 5 or 6 feet wide, then my expansion crack should be every 5 or 6 feet. If it's an 8-foot sidewalk, I want to do it every 8 feet, etc. So 8 by 8, 12 by 12, whatever the sidewalk happens to be. This one happens to be, I think, about 6, so I made it about 1.5 inches in O scale between my marks for my expansion. So all the sidewalks marked off. So I really don't want to ruin that sidewalk. And the way I'm going to keep from doing that then is to very carefully paint on the Elmer's glue that I'm going to put in here. So we'll take and we'll paint this, and I'm going to very carefully add this on here. Wherever I have dirt, I've painted some dirt in here. Those are going to be my flower beds. And so since I'm putting on green flock right now, I don't really want to do any gluing along in the flower bed area. So I'm just painting right now the green areas, the part that's actually going to be my yard. And I know this is a little bit tedious, but I try to do it a little bit at a time to keep my glue wet. I think it's extremely important. First of all, you're conducting electricity with the electrodes, whether you use a home-built flocking gun, or I have a knock gun here that I'm going to use. But whatever your source of static charge for this flocking grass, you want to make sure that the glue itself, your adhesive material, is wet, very wet, because the glue is what's transferring that electrical charge. So now I've finished with the glue. I'm going to put that out of the way so I don't run into it. And now what I have is I have my knock gun here, and I'm going to attach it. And the way I do that is to come in here. Oops, shock myself here if I'm not careful. I'm going to put that into someplace where it's a nice wet spot in my glue. Turn this on, it gives me a nice indicator here that it is, and I can just start shaking this on. It's certainly not complicated to do. I shouldn't have had probably as much trepidation about doing it as I did, but I did. So, at any rate, this really goes on, or I at least try to put it on, pretty thick. Okay, so, and that quickly, and we can unplug that. I'm going to touch that just a little bit to make sure. Now, one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to let all 3 of these yards then dry overnight before I start again. I skipped one, then I have the next one, skip this one, I have this one, and then I have the front one. So I did 3 tonight, I'll do 3 tomorrow and get those all ready. And then I'll show you the finished look of all 6 of the yards at the end of the video, along with the houses, and hopefully maybe the lights that we talked about a couple of videos ago. But I hope that you'll give flocking a try. It really is pretty easy. There's some tricks you can do, and that's what I'll talk about next